Hi, this is Helen from Jupiter's Realm, and in today's video I'm going to be having a look at the rising sign horoscopes for the transit of Uranus through Gemini. Before I get into that though, I just want to go over some of the relevant dates and then give you an overview of what Uranus and Gemini means in general. Uranus is one of the outer planets and spends on average 7 years in a sign. It was officially discovered in 1781, although there are theories that it was observed before then in the late 1600s, but was misidentified as a star. And so it's not part of the traditional astrological framework, and so it isn't assigned rulership of a sign. So I won't be using it in that way. But you can still work with it by looking at tight aspects with planets in your natal chart and by transit, because then you do see Uranian themes coming through. In 2025, Uranus will be in Gemini from the 7th of July until the 8th of November, when it retrogrades back into Taurus. So this is like a preview this year of its longest stay when it settles into Gemini next year. It goes back into Gemini on the 26th of April 2026 and will be there until the 3rd of August 2032 when it moves into Cancer. But it then dips back into Gemini on the 12th of August 2032 until the 22nd of May 2023 when it finally leaves Gemini and enters Cancer again. In terms of how relevant this transit may be for you, do bear in mind that obviously 7 years is a long time in terms of looking ahead, and Uranus and Gemini may say more about collective, social and cultural shifts. On a personal level, Uranus and Gemini won't be relevant for everybody. You're more likely to see personally relevant manifestations of what Uranus and Gemini means if it's going to make tight aspects to planets or angles in your birth chart, which won't be the case for everyone. But if that is the case for you, then do look for exact aspects, maybe up to around a 3-degree or at the most. So before we move on to the horoscopes, let's take a look at what Uranus and Gemini signify in astrology. Uranus has been linked to the Greek myth of the Titan Prometheus, rather than the deity of Uranus, as a better symbol of what Uranus in astrology means, although there are some features of the god Uranus that do seem relevant. Prometheus in myth rebelled against the gods and helped overthrow the god Cronus. He stole fire from the heavens, and fire can represent divine wisdom and inspiration, and liberated humanity from the rule of the gods. And we see these themes of rebellion, liberation and upheaval as core significations of Uranus. It's the impulse to break away from traditional or limiting patterns, habits or norms, and to go beyond boundaries and limitations, to feel unrestricted and independent, and to act with authenticity. Now, under a Uranus transit, there can often be a sense of needing to be willing to take a risk on something, to just do it, even if you're not sure what the outcome will be, which, sometimes can feel a little unnerving. Uranus is about quick or unexpected change, and there's a restlessness here, sometimes a shock factor, and there's often an unpredictability to events. And that can be experienced either as something that's exciting or exhilarating, or chaotic and destabilising. Just keep in mind that whilst it may feel uncomfortable, that ultimately it can take you to new horizons, or ways of doing or being that make you feel more in tune with who you are, or that gives you a greater sense of freedom, or release from something that's been holding you back. So do try and keep an open mind to that. It's more likely to be helpful if you can stay flexible around what's happening. You might need to adapt quickly, be able to pivot quickly, or be prepared to let go of what you normally cling to and embrace new possibilities or approaches. Uranus also symbolises the lightning bolt of inspiration or the flash of insight or revelation. It's about invention and innovation, thinking outside the box and making new discoveries. And it's associated with technology, science and space, and these correlate with the myth of Uranus as a sky god. Now, Gemini, ruled by Mercury, is a mutable air sign and so represents the mental realm, social interactions and changeability. It's also associated with a quick pace. Mercury in myth was the winged messenger of the gods, the go-between between the worlds of gods, humans and the underworld. There's a lot of movement and pace built into this sign, and so Uranus going through Gemini is likely just to amplify that pace. Gemini as a mutable sign and with an inherent dualistic quality is likely to mean lots of activity, lots of possibilities to choose from or actions, decisions or options that come into play as well. It's a sign of curiosity and is associated, as I mentioned before, with the mind, intellect, but also core themes of transmission and connection. Gemini topics include the gathering, exchange, or analysis of data and information, so it covers all forms of communication, networking, learning, teaching, but also business transactions and money, and travel and mobility. So with Uranus and Gemini, we can expect to see a lot of change around these kinds of topics: how we think, how we communicate, how we share ideas and information and learn and travel, as well as new innovations coming through or developments of existing inventions in science, technology or space. And so-called disruptive technologies coming up, which are those which change the way that industries, business or markets or economies operate. All of which may feel hectic or accelerated or end up being revolutionary in the long run, and some of which we may not even be able to anticipate or imagine yet. Ideas and intellectual matters could see some radical departures from the previous norms. There may be multiple shifts or changes in opinions and ideas or in stances in social spheres. And we may need to be mindful of how to manage competing views and opinions in a way that respects, accommodates or honours difference, rather than in a way that creates conflict, because Uranus can be very disrupting and so conflict can arise as a result of that. So these are some things to keep in mind as we go through the rising sign horoscopes. Do bear in mind that these are general themes that you can think about for your sign, and not all of them may apply to you. Your own experiences will be personalised by the placements and condition of planets in your own chart. For Aries rising, Uranus will be transiting your third house, the joy of the moon. This is a house of communication, education, siblings and extended family, as well as themes of travel and mobility and day-to-day religious practices or devotions. So Uranus transiting here may bring inspiration, breakthroughs, disruption or unexpected changes or events around these matters. As a house of communication and also media, it's about how you put your ideas out into the world and activities like writing, speaking or learning. So there could be some inspiration here around what direction you're going to go with these, or having inspired creations. You may feel inspired to break away from what you normally do and embark on a new or different way of doing these things that feels more authentic for you and perhaps generates a sense of more freedom around these topics. You may be changing your habits or your patterns in this area of life, or even your ideas or opinions that you share. It could be a good time for experimenting with ideas and with creativity and originality, if you're writing, blogging, doing videos, teaching or even learning. You may be exploring a variety of activities around these, trying out different things and being really curious or adventurous about those. Uranus here supports an innovative and original approach, and technology may play a part over time too, with perhaps new or improved technologies or systems that can help you share your ideas or go about your activities. Uranus can bring the possibility for some more liberating changes taking place that offer you more freedom to communicate or to get around in your local environment, for example on your routine journeys. Equally, there's a possibility for disruptions around short distance or routine travel, the patterns or habits that you have around those, and the theme of mobility in general. And some unexpected events could come up around these, or you could find that you're getting busier or doing more activities over time. This can also be about shifts and changes to do with extended family or your community and the local environment that you engage with. Gemini is a social sign, so expect some changes to interactions and how you communicate in this space. There may be an underlying theme here of a need for authentic connection and how to manage changes in perspectives and opinions. If you have regular or daily devotional practices or activities, there could be some inspiration or breakthroughs around these, moving you into new territories. Or if you're feeling limited or stuck, this could bring some breakthroughs. Overall, you may like to think about freshening up this area of life, especially if any of these topics are starting to feel a bit stuck in a rut in some way. What can you do to bring back more enthusiasm, excitement and stimulation, to move past existing limits or constraints? Embrace inspiration and don't be afraid to be innovative or to experiment, or just, do things in a way that's different than usual, but that aligns authentically with who you are. As Uranus goes through Gemini, it will at some point make a sextile aspect by degree to your ascendant point. So these shifts and changes around your third house may have a helpful influence on your sense of identity or your personal expression over time. You may feel more open to engaging with different ways of expressing your personality, which might seem like a radical departure from how you've been before, but which feels more liberating and authentic. For Taurus rising, Uranus will be going through your second house of finances, assets, income and expenditure, meaning there's a possibility of some surprises or unexpected change around finances. You have Gemini on this sign in your birth chart, and so you may have finances coming in from multiple sources, or there may be an element of flux and change around your finances in your life already. And so this could be a period of time where that's been pushed in the new direction or amplified. You may feel an impulse to want more autonomy or freedom around how you earn or spend money, perhaps with some new ideas or options opening up for you, or the freeing up of resources that in some way gives you a sense of more liberation or options or movement around what you can do in life. For example, more financial options to go on holiday or reduce your working hours, to be self-employed or buy things for the home. Now, as a Taurus rising person, you may have an underlying need for consistency and stability and security in your life. It will depend, of course, on where Venus, your ascendant ruler, is in your chart. But generally speaking, having changeability around finances may already feel uncomfortable for you. And with Uranus coming through here, it could feel a little bit destabilising. So part of this transit may be working out how do you navigate that kind of change in a way that can feel more comfortable for you. Try and just go step by step, one day at a time. On the whole, Uranus here will be calling for you to perhaps break out of any stuck, fixed or traditional ways of thinking about finances, as well as asking you to really consider some new possibilities, some new strategies or approaches that might really bring through a sense of having some more room to move here, even just aligning income in a more authentic way with how you want to live your life. So be open to inspiration or opportunities and the possibilities of something different being something that's helpful in the long run for you. For Gemini rising, this puts Uranus in your first house of personality, character, self and identity, as well as your vitality in your body. Uranus here is calling for you to be aware about how you feel in terms of being who you are and what you want to be in the world, and breaking away from what might be limiting you within yourself from doing that in an authentic way. So this could really be bringing through some major shifts and changes here around how you view yourself, how you feel in terms of your own vitality and physicality, how you present yourself to the world. You may be feeling that you want to express yourself more freely, free from the constraints or judgments or norms of others about how you should be. This could, for example, be physical changes that come up, like a change in how you dress, your hairstyle, and it could sort of seem to other people around you like, wow, this is a really radical change, it's really surprising. But for you, it may feel right and authentic and something that's really important for you to do at this time so that you can really be yourself. Be open to new physical and wellness routines rather than old ones that just might not be appropriate or helpful for you anymore, especially if you haven't been feeling tip-top in health recently. Uranus in your first house can also be about a marked shift in your mental perception and your intellect, how you think, learn, perceive, take in information, or how you share your ideas and the way you communicate as part of your personality. This could include having flashes of inspiration and insight, perhaps relating to your sense of identity and individuality. It could be a very mentally stimulating time for you, and you might even need to be mindful about getting overly mentally stimulated, because Geminis, as a general statement, can be very mentally active anyway and curious, and so Uranus is only going to amplify that. So ahead of time, you might sort of want to think about strategies that you can have to hand or routines that are going to help you calm your mind and get more into your body. That could be one way to do that. So things like meditation, yoga, or incorporating more active physical exercise, for example. Consider also things like your social media consumption and too much screen time, etc. For Cancer rising, Uranus is going to be in your 12th house. This is the joy of Saturn and is associated with themes of retreat, isolation, being away from the normal hustle and bustle of life in some way, in more secluded or less visible settings. It's also associated with more challenging topics in life and the things that go against our best interest. It can be related to health matters, particularly around mental health, and things like marginalisation and burdens and suffering. So with Uranus here, this could bring some radical shifts to this part of life. In terms of health, Uranus here could be related to breakthroughs around healthcare, whether that's for yourself or if you're engaging with a healthcare or wellness type of environment, like for work, for example. There may be opportunities for new approaches or more appropriate solutions for how you're dealing with health that goes in a new direction, especially if you've been feeling limited or stuck in a rut. This could also be stirring up some radical shifts around ideas about this part of life, how this part of life is perceived, and how you see these topics such as mental health and wellness, and if or how that relates to your own sense of wellness. Uranus coming through this house may open up some doors for breaking through restrictions or limitations and finding a newfound sense of liberation. So be open to opportunities or ways of approaching the situation that might seem unconventional, but which might bring you that sense of freedom in the long run. For Leo rising, this puts Uranus in your 11th house of friends, social groups and organisations, and this includes people that support you in your own aspirations, like benefactors, collaborators and patrons. So with Uranus here, you may see some major shake-ups in your social sphere of life. If you're a person that doesn't like change so much, then this might feel a little bit more disruptive. And so you might be navigating sort of how to work with that, how to navigate a changing social environment where existing rules, structures or ideologies are being broken down or being broken through. But on the other hand, for some people, that could feel really refreshing and exciting. There may be people coming into your life that are really sort of quite different than the people that you normally mix with, or that are inspiring, inventive, unique or unorthodox in some way. These could be people perhaps with radical ideas or perspectives that stir up that social environment. Or you may be wanting to feel more stimulation or freedom in your social groups, especially around how people think or communicate, or break away from existing social circles that you're normally part of, and venture into new ones that seem to offer a more liberating, inspiring or invigorating way of interacting, especially if friends or groups have been feeling limiting or stagnant. So Uranus here may be pushing you to kind of break out of your normal social environments or patterns and to be open to new social paradigms and adventures. Something that could also come up is radical shifts going on in terms of opinions and perspectives and ideologies. So keep in mind that there could be some tension here with that. You know, Uranus can be sort of quite shocking and there can be an element of conflict with Uranus. So just sort of being mindful about not getting too entangled in differences of opinions where that devolves into conflict. Uranus will at some point make an exact sextile to your ascendant as it goes through Gemini, and so changes here may bring some helpful influence or outcome regarding your own identity or sense of self, perhaps helping you to express yourself in a more authentic or even bold way that feels refreshing or liberating. For Virgo rising, Uranus is going through your 10th house, and this is your house of career and vocation, the main activities that you do in life, whether that's a career or a job, or if you're a caretaker or a homemaker. And it's also about public reputation and public status. So Uranus here is bringing through some changes, perhaps some disruptions around career and vocation, which may push you in a new or unexpected direction, or which offers breakthroughs or a greater sense of autonomy in work. This could be a sudden change of career, which perhaps gives you more freedom or being less restricted in some way, and it could feel exciting or inspiring if you're open to doing that. Or you may feel like you need a break or a change from what you've been doing, especially if that now seems restrictive or hindering to your long-term ambitions. You may want some new experiences, some new adventures, new horizons, and perhaps something that feels a bit more authentic to you, or where you've got more freedom in terms of the type of work you do or how you do it, with maybe more independence, so for example going freelance. Alternatively, Uranus here can indicate some major changes in the work environment, for example changes to the company that you work for, its structure or direction, schedules, planning, bosses or supervisors, which obviously may then have an impact on your day-to-day in some way. Either way, Uranus here calls for being open and adaptable to any changes that are arising. Uranus will also make a square to your ascendant at some point as it goes through Gemini, and so this may influence your own sense of identity or your public standing. It could bring some internal restlessness or some friction as you navigate and adjust to these changes. Uranus here encourages you to be open and adaptable about any changes that arise, and try to see how change offers the opportunity for something different that might actually enhance your sense of self in the long run. For Libra rising, Uranus will be transiting your 9th house of international matters and people, and long distance travel, or those kind of journeys and trips that you don't often make. The 9th house is the joy of the sun, and through that we see themes of divine wisdom, intellect and perception coming through. The 9th house is a house of higher education and learning, as well as religion, philosophy and astrology, and your general sort of spiritual outlook and beliefs. It also represents publishing and law, if that's relevant for you. Uranus transiting here offers new potential and vistas for educational teaching. You might feel inspired to expand your horizons and learn some new or different subjects that perhaps you hadn't anticipated that you'd want to do, or perhaps to take on a different way of learning and absorbing knowledge, or communicating with others in a learning space. As a house of travel, Uranus going through here can point to sudden or unexpected journeys that arise, or unexpected changes to journeys, and so you may need to be able to adapt quickly to those changing circumstances. You may also have unexpected encounters with people from other places. As a place of philosophy and religion and wisdom, and with Gemini relating quite strongly to the mind and ideas, whilst Uranus is here, your own philosophy, spirituality, religion or other beliefs may undergo radical shifts and perhaps even multiple shifts. You may want to break free of your existing beliefs if they no longer feel that they align with who you are, or if they're no longer inspiring to you. And so you may feel compelled to move towards some sort of quite different ways of looking at life in the world, or religious matters or spiritual matters. And it may be a process of experimenting with those, trying different ones out, changing your mind more than once. And you don't have to just stick to one thing. Having multiple beliefs or multiple spiritual or religious disciplines may feel more suitable during this time. You may have some inspired ideas, some flashes of insight that kind of help you to connect more to an authentic sense of what you believe and what you perceive about the world and life, or about the divine or the cosmos in general. Some of the changes that arise for you around this house could be linked to technologies and improvements or innovations that influence how or where you travel to, or how or where you interact with people from other parts of the world, and how you engage with spiritual matters, or how you learn or teach. There could possibly be some shifts around people in authority in this area of life for you. For example, authority figures in higher education or in spiritual or religious communities or endeavours. For Scorpio rising, this puts Uranus on your 8th house, which relates to shared resources. This can be partners' finances, or finances to do with business partners, money from clients, but also inheritance, grants, benefits, and financial obligations or contracts, like tax debts or mortgages. It's also the house of end-of-life matters and the psyche in terms of fears and anxieties. So Uranus going through here points to some shake-ups or unexpected developments around any of these topics. For example, your spouse or your business partner's finances go through some surprising changes. If you've got financial commitments, Uranus here can indicate opportunities around the progress of these. There may be a sort of freeing up here around that. If you've been feeling restricted or held back by these in the past, whether that's a shared resource, situation, or tax or debt, for example, there could be some opportunities here which kind of break that open a bit and give you some more wiggle room or relieve you of some pressures. For example, the ending or breaking away from obligations or agreements or contracts, or being able to implement new, more equitable arrangements to have more independence or say about matters, or to implement new strategies, ideas or schedules. And so generally having a sense of more equality or freedom about these types of finances. For some people, depending on what's happening with your natal chart, this may feel a little bit destabilising, or on the other end of the scale, it could feel quite liberating. But either way, expect some sort of change here, perhaps with a lot of going to and fro as you navigate these matters. So don't be surprised if it feels a little bit hectic or a bit unsettled. Keep in mind that this transit can offer opportunities to overcome what may have been limiting in some way, even if it doesn't feel very defined or certain yet. As a place of end-of-life matters and fears and anxiety, Uranus here may bring some surprising but liberating developments. If these things have been a burden or holding you back, this could be a process of discovering new avenues and solutions to manage or overcome those, and to feel more like you can breathe a bit more, so to speak. Consider how embracing different strategies than normal or pushing for more autonomy in these matters may help you move into new horizons or ways of engaging with these matters. Sagittarius rising, Uranus is going to be going through your 7th house, and this is your house of relationships, marriage and partnerships, and that includes sort of one-to-one relationships like business partnerships or client work, for example. So Uranus is likely to be stirring up some changes around these. This could be forming new or totally unexpected or surprising partnerships, or what is an unconventional relationship for you. It could feel exciting or liberating in some way, or push you to be more authentic in the relationship, or to be more experimental and go beyond the bounds of your normal relationship habits or patterns. Think about how those might no longer be supporting you or be appropriate, or in what way they're holding the relationship back from developing. The type of people that are sort of coming into your life in these relationships might not normally be the sort of people that you interact with. They may be very different, or they may just be very inspiring and enthusiastic, or very liberated, individual and original. Another possibility is that you may be wanting to refresh or break away from an existing partnership, especially if it feels a bit staid or boring or stuck in a rut. So if you're in an existing relationship, it could be a time to consider how you can spice that relationship up, how you can feel more mentally stimulated perhaps, or move the relationship into a direction which feels more authentic, more fun, and more enjoyable. And the theme of independence and equality may be important too, with a desire or drive to feel more autonomous or to have more equity in the relationship. You may have some new insights coming through about relationships, about what you need or want from them. And how you communicate in relationships may be undergoing some kind of transformation as well. Consider what you can do differently in terms of how you think or how you communicate. For Capricorn rising, Uranus is going to be going through your 6th house. This is a house of illness, accidents and health, but also of routine work and chores, the sort of day-to-day stuff that you have to do that perhaps you don't want to do, and that can be related to work, and also service-oriented tasks. It's also the house of small animals and pets. So Uranus transiting this house for you may bring up some unexpected changes around the theme of health and wellness in life, whether that's for you or for someone that you're caring for. This could entail new or different developments, but it could also bring through some inspiration or opportunities to have some new approaches to health and wellness that may, help you break down old patterns and old habits that perhaps aren't serving you so well anymore health-wise, and so that you can go on to new and better things that may be more supportive or give you a sense of being less restricted or stuck around health and wellness. So do keep an open mind about changing your approaches or your routines or your habits, and perhaps going in a different direction that can offer you improvement. For routine work or service-oriented tasks, you may be seeking more autonomy in what you do, or perhaps more stimulation or interest. Existing routines or work practices may be disrupted, taking you into new ones. Consider how these could ultimately better align with what you need or want. Look for opportunities to embrace new ideas and strategies, and don't be afraid to try doing things in a new way. If you have pets or animals, there could be some unexpected events around those, perhaps changing the way that you interact with animals in your life. For example, perhaps you decide you want to explore having new kinds of animals in your life. Let's say you're a dog person and maybe now you decide you're going to be a cat person. For Aquarius rising, Uranus is going to be transiting your 5th house, which is the joy of Venus. This is a house of children and creativity, of leisure and pleasure, and is also linked to romance and sex. This could be quite an exciting or stimulating time to tap into creative inspiration, to be original and free in your creative expression, as well as embracing new ways of engaging what you do for leisure or pleasure, even if that looks very different to what you currently do, but which could ultimately feel quite liberating and enjoyable. Be open to exploring and experimenting with different possibilities, ideas and avenues. Don't limit yourself. Regarding sex and romance, Uranus here encourages you to be open to explore and maybe experiment with some different ways of engaging with these types of activities, or how you communicate about them with others, so that you can really find what fits with your needs and desires. If there's been any barriers or inhibitions around these, this might be a time where you feel more able to break through those and feel more of a sense of agency about them. If you have children, this could be a time where your children are going through some important shifts or changes themselves, and which might feel disruptive for you. Children in your life could be going through a process of wanting to feel more liberated or more independent, doing things their own way, and so this could be something that you may be having to navigate and be adaptable about. As it moves through your 5th house, at some point during the next few years, Uranus is going to make an exact trine to your ascendant point in your 1st house. And so whatever is happening around your 5th house here could be having some influence on how you feel about yourself, about your ideas and how you express yourself. These 5th house topics may have the potential to help you explore or push the boundaries of or express your individuality in an authentic way. For Pisces rising, Uranus is going to be travelling through your 4th house. This is your house of home and family and living situation, and it also covers parents and legacy, heritage and land. Uranus transiting here indicates some major changes or upheavals around home and living environment. For example, there could be a sudden move or an unexpected development around property or how you're living, or a sudden change regarding parents or people that are in your home environment. Now, those experiences could range from sort of being disruptive to being quite freeing. You may perhaps feel inspired to take on a more freedom-loving orientation around how you live. That could be, for example, making a break with your existing living circumstances in some way. For example, changing your place of residence, selling or buying property, or making a change regarding your family connections. The driver for any of that is likely to be wanting more freedom or independence, or for your home life to better align with what you feel supports you as an individual, or just some unexpected circumstances that come up that mean you have to take a different direction. At some point, whilst Uranus is going through your 4th house, it will make an exact square to your ascendant. And so matters to do with home, which Uranus is triggering here, may well play into your sense of self and your identity and even your vitality. And so that's something to keep in mind here. There may be some friction around that, with perhaps a push for you to break out of your existing patterns, habits or thought patterns, and move forward in a new uninhibited direction in terms of how you express yourself and relate to the 4th house. And this could also be to do with your relationships in the 4th house. So those are the rising sign horoscopes for Uranus and Gemini. I hope you found it helpful. And if you have any questions or comments, please do leave them below. And if you'd like to be notified about future video releases, please do subscribe to my channel. Till next time then, bye for now.